What?
Explain. Welcome, Danny Batten.
Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation, the home of the Danny Batten Fight Show, episode number 48, talking the latest MMA news, Bellator fights and the UFC card from last night. And we've got these two children joining us. But you can subscribe to youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation, of course. And a big thank you to everyone who's done so far, because we hit 1,000 subscribers earlier this week, which was cool. It was one of the long-term goals we set at the start, which was nice to make it. And of course, you can find the audio versions at all the usual radio podcasting apps. But of course, as usual, joining me is former Cage Warriors champion, UK MMA legend, Mr. Danny Batten. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
Yes, I'm good.
Good week.
Well, it's lockdown. It's been dull, boring, frustrating.
Yeah. It's been shite, I think is the word you're looking for, mate. It's been depressingly bad. But There was some good fights last night to talk about. And joining us, I'm thrilled to welcome back professional MMA fighter, Richard Mearns. How goes it, buddy?
How are you doing?
Should we introduce you as the better Mearns brother? I'm not sure.
Yeah, the more handsome half of the two.
Okay, yeah. There we go.
So I've been told.
Yeah. Loads to talk about, and we're not going to talk about politics because I'm sick of that shit. First and foremost, I think we're going to talk. Zhang Yan, who had what is widely regarded as the best female fight of all time earlier this year versus Xiaonan Jacek. God, the bloody names. But it looks like she's heading for a fight with Rose Namajunas towards the end of this year. I think that would be an incredible. They always seem to put a big card on just after Christmas, don't they? Just in sort of around New Year's Eve, somewhere around that. That would be an incredible fight, Dan. Do you not think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's going to create some attention. Because the thing is, with some of the female fights, you normally get one person expected to dominate over the other, and it's normally the case. But I think that's going to be a closely contested bout.
Yeah, and Thug Rose she's caused a couple of upsets before, but she's also been upset as well when she's been expected to win. And obviously, Zhang Yan she's just an incredible fighter, and she can take some punishment as well. So on paper, it looks like a phenomenal matchup. Not a great deal of news really this week. One thing which did perk my interest was the kind of Robert Whittaker and Dana White going back and forth a little bit, which we'll talk about in just a second. But Richard, you would look forward to that Thug Rose versus Zhang Yan?
Massively. I think Thug Rose is actually one of my favourite fighters. Like, I kind of get invested in fighters because of how they conduct themselves, like, outside of the cage as well. Like, you kind of get some kind of emotional attachment to certain fighters, and Thug's a definite fan favourite of mine.
So you're a big fan of Conor McGregor and John Jones then?
Say again?
I said you're a big fan of Conor McGregor and John Jones then?
I don't know. Like, I like the People's Champs. Frankie Edgar, they're my heroes. And Rose Namajunas is one of those. Conor and John Jones are absolutely amazing. But I don't get as excited to watch them. I mean, well, I don't know. I always get excited for a Conor fight, but
you can't. I know what you mean.
You with his antics outside the cage, you know.
Yeah, it takes away from it. He's in phenomenal shape, by the way. I don't know if you saw his social media page this week, but he posted some sort of training pics and stuff. He's in fighting shape. I don't care what anyone says. Whether he says he's retired, I don't think so. You know what he's like. He's a businessman, and he'll tease everything and get the most amount of money for what he does, but he is definitely in fighting shape. So it'd be interesting because he said he wants to fight before the end of the year. Dana White says he's retired, but then they keep talking about fights for him. Do you think we'll see him before the end of this year, Dan?
I don't think we'll see him. I don't think before the end of the year, but certainly
like a January, February fight, maybe.
Yeah, if he's in like this amazing shape, you know something's being spoke about that hasn't been announced yet. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him in January.
Yeah, it'd be interesting where
they
go with him.
Boyer, aren't they?
Yeah, that'd be a great fight. I don't want to see it either.
I want to see him fight Masvidal.
That's the fight. I think I want to see him in super fights now. I think we talked about this before, Dan. I'm not really like he's done it all in terms of title fights, unless like a really like a Khabib rematch, similar to that. Maybe I just go with, but I'm not even sure I want to see that fight again. I'd rather see a Masvidal fight or even a Diaz fight. I think that's the sort of thing which I think will be better for him.
I think what we initially really want to see is two people doing MMA striking together. I think that's what we want to see. And even though
will do that.
Yeah, even though Masvidal could potentially take Conor down probably each round, I think he just wouldn't. I just think he'd want to put the MAME on him or try to attempt to.
That Masvidal, Diaz, or Ferguson would be my kind of three, which I'd quite like to see Conor McGregor face. But yeah, so after Whittaker won the other week, he was asked about what he wants to do next. Obviously, he's ranked number 1, I think, and he said, like, I'm not really interested in other fights. I'm only interested in Israel Adesanya. Then Dana White said pretty much the same. He said the fight interests him. And then 2 days later, they announced Blachowicz versus Adesanya, with Adesanya moving up a weight. And then Dana White basically implied that it was because Whittaker didn't want the Adesanya fight, or he wasn't super interested in it. I don't know. I think Whittaker's in a bit of a tricky position because I think in some ways, Dan, because he got beaten so comprehensively by Adesanya, I'm not sure if I'm ready for that rematch yet. But then equally, he was quite impressive the other week. And when you're ranked number 1, the next step is to go for the title, isn't it?
Yeah, normally so. But I wouldn't mind seeing him just have one more fight before he thinks about going for the title. I know that might be counterintuitive of the position that he's in. But I think he's looked better and better each fight. Okay, he was receiving some leg kicks in this last fight, but he adapted and changed his strategy like a seasoned mixed martial artist should, and he impressed. But I just think one more would put him in good shape to really contend for that title.
Yeah, I just realised, I didn't just realise, but I just looked now. Since he's lost to Adesanya, he lost in October 2019. Since then, he's beaten Darren Till and Jared Cannonier. So I suppose from his point of view, he's, I've beaten 2 guys comprehensively. I want my rematch, but I think from what I've read, it seems like the UFC, Richard, would like to put Whittaker up against Costa, Paulo Costa, but I don't know if Whittaker wants that fight because he's got his eyes on Adesanya. But ultimately, something which we're going to talk about a bit later, about they've got these fights lined up whereby they've got Blachowicz versus Adesanya in March. Then the winner of that's probably going to face John Jones. So that light heavyweight title is tied up. So they are going to have to do... the light heavyweight title is tied up, but also the middleweight title is tied up as well. Because if Adesanya does win against Blachowicz, then he's going to go on to that John Jones fight, which means Whittaker's got to fight someone next year. He can't just sit out and wait for the middleweight title holder to come back down. Do you think Paulo Costa's a good match for him?
I think so. I mean, have they fought before, Costa and Whittaker?
I'm going to just check.
Because if not, it makes total sense to me.
So we go. But yeah, I think Robert Whittaker's like those top 4 rankings is Adesanya, Whittaker, Costa, and Romero. I don't think Romero is really. I'm not looking at matching Romero with Whittaker. So I think Costa makes the most sense. It's a tricky one, Dan, isn't it? Because they're almost tying up the two titles, potentially all of next year. If Adesanya beats Blachowicz, those two titles are tied up, aren't they?
Yeah, but I mean, how is it standing now with two titles? I mean, whenever someone has two titles, they normally have to give up one for the other, don't they?
Yeah, they normally have to give up one once they win them, don't they? They kind of move them
they're
down,
not letting them because they can't be active enough. So, in which case, it would free it up. So,
I suppose
I would say wait on that Blachowicz fight and see what happens there. And if Adesanya wins that, I take it he'll be defending up there for a while fighting up there for a while because he's going to obviously want to chase Jones. That would make sense. In which case, you could have Costa versus Whittaker for what will become the vacant middleweight title. So, if I was Whittaker, I'd just sit and wait on it and see what happens. See whether there's any shuffling about. If not, if I was Whittaker, I'd still fight Costa anyway. We've seen he's definitely beatable. He got beaten pretty easily, but we can only credit really Adesanya's amazing strategic plan for that one, the tactics. I just think, I'd wait on it and sit on it. But fighting Costa, I think something that I don't think he'll fear to do. I think he's more well-rounded than Costa is. Costa's just an absolute animal. If you back down, he tastes blood very, very quickly. He's got a very, very fast sense of when he's creating intimidation and he reacts to it. It's like a shark in the water that gets a taste of blood. That's it. They're on it. But I just think that'd be a good fight. I actually think he'll beat Costa.
Yeah, I do too. But whenever you face someone, I've just looked now, they haven't fought each other before. But the thing is, Richard, it's like if you fight someone like Costa, it's always a risk, isn't it? Because he can just bang you out. Look, I kind of agree with you, Dan. If Adesanya loses to Blachowicz, then you do Whittaker versus Adesanya for the title rematch. If he wins against Blachowicz, you do it him versus Costa for the vacant title. That makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about those tied up titles again a bit later on in the show. The last bit of news which caught my eye, Richard, was that Darren Till has pulled out of his fight December. I've lost the date now, but I think it was December the 5th. He's supposed to be facing Jack Hermansson in the main event. Darren Till, I feel like he needs a bit of a win. He hasn't had the best of luck in the last 12 months or so. And unfortunately, he's had to pull out for it. He says an undisclosed injury. And now that main event will be Kevin Holland, who's obviously fast on the rise. Are you disappointed, first of all, not to see Darren Till in December? And what do you make of the replacement?
I'm not overly disappointed, to be honest. It's not a division that I watch much. I'd appreciate all the fights when I see them. And then, I mean, would it not make sense maybe if Whittaker fights the winner of Kevin Holland versus Hermansson? That could be it could be an interesting one. Kevin Holland is he's been impressive, I've got to say. Dan, what do you think of? Obviously, first and foremost, Darren Till pulling out, and then obviously you've got the replacement in Kevin Holland.
Yeah, the fight world, that's just part of the thing. You can pick up these injuries. Let's just hope it's nothing too serious for him, but obviously enough for him to not be able to put the training in that's needed for the fight. These things happen. So I'm not disappointed because there's so many other brilliant matchups, and Kevin Holland's he's a great fighter and will put up a great performance up against anybody. So I don't think that's a disappointing replacement to watch by any stretch.
No, I mean Kevin Holland's on a 4 fight win streak. He lost to Brendan Allen in October 2019, and since then he's beaten and he's finished all of them bar one, which was the Darren Stewart fight. He's finished Hernandez, Joaquin Buckley, Darren Stewart, which he won by decision, and Charlie Ontiveros, most recently in October 31st, a couple of weeks back. He's been impressive, and particularly impressive on that Halloween one. I thought he was very, very impressive in that fight.
To fight 3 months in a row is quite impressive, I think.
Yeah, and I think part of that is the kind of COVID era of stuff, isn't it? I think fighters are very keen to keep fighting if they can, and injuries permitting and stuff. From Darren Till's point of view, he's going to be devastated to have had to pull out. Obviously, since he beat Stephen Thompson back in 2018 in May, he lost to Tyrone Woodley, lost to Masvidal, finished in both of those. Then he beat Kelvin Gastelum via split decision, and then he lost by decision to Robert Whittaker. So I do feel like he needs to get that run, because prior to the Tyrone Woodley fight, he was on a 6-fight win streak in just the UFC one. Or one of them was a draw. But he was on a 7-fight unbeaten streak before the Tyrone Woodley fight. Then he lost again to Masvidal, which, as we talked about with Masvidal, anyone can lose to Masvidal on any given night. I just think he needs to get back that bit of momentum, maybe. Do you think, Dan?
Yeah,
he's only 27, mate. Him and Holland, 27, 28. They're right in the peak of their careers. I don't think it's a case of having to worry about where they're going. I think it's just a case of getting that bit of momentum. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I don't know. The advice I'd be giving him, or if I was actually sat in his position, I'd be wanting to fight someone more down the ranks that's keen to try to climb up. And
we talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are outside that top 15 or just breaking into that top 15 that would be really keen to take that fight on, and it opens up his options. There'll probably be at least 3 or 4 fighters willing to fight, upper rank to try to get their ranking up and have a shot to nothing. And it gives Till a chance to rebuild, which I think he really does need. I know he's really, really young, but you have to get wins to stay in the UFC, and he hasn't had those of late. He needs to get back on winning ways. He's still learning on the job as well. I think he come in with a certain skill set and a certain timing that people couldn't read, and he was pulling off the win after win. But I think he's been a little bit found out. So you have to add on to your skill set and bring new things to the table. So hopefully he'll adapt, change, increase his skill set so that he can keep himself relevant. And he's at that young age where you can take on a new skill set and see something a little bit new from him.
Yeah, he's ranked. So Dan Till's ranked 6.
Right.
Directly above him, you've got Hermansson 4 and Romero 5. Then below him, you've got Derek Brunson. You've got Kelvin Gastelum, obviously beat before. You've got Uriah Hall, Chris Weidman, Edmund Shabazian, Omari Akhmedov, and then Marvin Vettori, Tavares, and Ian Heinz. To me,
that Ryan Hall might be a good match.
A Uriah Hall or a Gastelum rematch, maybe.
No, I wouldn't want to see that. But Till, he's quite a fast starter. He just goes from the beginning, whereas Hall's a little bit slow, but got the power. So that would create still interest in people watching that fight, because you've got one person who's going to push the pace, and then you've got someone else that's going to sit down on his shots that can always create that potential knockout. So it's not like, it's not like if it's not fighting someone that's not got, some dynamite in his hands. He's not taking an easy fight by any stretch, but that's one that's well within his reach to win if it goes to the decision. That might be a good one.
Richard, anyone from those rankings, either below or above, that you'd like to see Darren Till go with when he's fit?
I think Uriah Hall. I think that'd be cool. He's just coming off of his win against Anderson Silva, which is a good fight. But
there's a couple of risky fights in that as below him as well, I think, as well. Just because people are below him in the rankings doesn't necessarily always mean that it's like a tune-up fight, does it? Because I think Edmund Shabazian, Omari Akhmedov could both give him some trouble with their skill set. So for him, I'm sure he wouldn't, but he shouldn't look down the rankings and think that's an easy way for me to get to build my victories up, which I'm sure he wouldn't do anyway, professional as he is. One big name which we saw make his Bellator debut this week was Corey Anderson. What did you make of his performance, Danny?
Yeah, he was really, really dominant, but realistically, what and who was he dominant against. You know, he's up against someone that's predominantly just a striker. He's small for division, and he's what 44 years old. So yeah,
and it got him down. It was all over.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, 5'8" to 6'3". There was issues trying to get in close to make Melvin's striking relevant, and he's a one-trick pony at best in MMA. So yeah, I mean, well done. You know, it does come with some certain dangers, but yeah, I mean, Melvin's way past his best now. So yeah, it's a great introduction for him for Bellator. It's the start of a new story for him. Corey's a lot better than someone like Melvin. I think it was a little give me fight for him, a little welcome fight. But you know, if you actually have a look at that division, he's pretty much probably the number one contender for that title, skill for skill. But I'm sure they'll give him another little, feeder fight first. Yeah, you can't really say much more about it, really. Yeah, I mean, the only way anything was going to go wrong is if he got clipped. Melvin would be on you. But,
yeah, the main thing was to get the win, wasn't it, in his debut? Just to make sure that nothing untoward happened.
That's right. It was a payday, one that he didn't have to work hard in. Melvin did stay in it. He did roll over and just get defeated easy. He was in it, hoping to get something off, but nothing arose for him. And I think a lot of it was, just the size deficit that he was giving away.
Yes. Richard, anything to add? What did you make of Corey Anderson's Bellator debut?
You know, I haven't actually seen the fight. I only saw a little bit on Instagram. But I feel like Melvin Manhoff, I don't really like seeing him fight these days because he's a legend, if you know what I mean. And I think he's gonna, I don't know, he's maybe being used as a bit of a journeyman. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
interesting what they do with him next.
Do you know why Corey left for Bellator? Do you know why he made the switch?
I don't.
I'm just wondering because it looks like he was having a good run at the UFC. Like,
I think UFC
and then
released him, didn't they?
4 wins prior. Is it just money or?
I think they released him. I'll just double check now. I'm sure. Dan, do you remember if they?
I don't remember anything.
He just didn't sign a new contract.
Yeah, I mean,
he requested it.
Right. Yeah, Corey's quite a quiet individual, though, isn't he? He's not someone that talks a lot. So I imagine any issues with him with UFC will be kept close to chest.
Yeah.
But he obviously was getting other offers. It was probably down to pay someone down the line because he don't talk it up in a massive way. Yeah. He's probably not getting as paid as much as some of the others. And now I think some of these wages these fight prices are being released. I think sometimes it's leaving a bit of a bad flavour in some of the other fighters' mouths, and they're looking to move on to people who are willing to pay more. And that wouldn't surprise me that he's moved over for that reason.
And look, in that heavyweight, isn't he? In that heavyweight division, Bellator's division is weird. They've got there's some big names in terms of you got a couple of ex-WWE guys which would on paper bring in eyes for the kind of freak show factor, for lack of a better term. But Corey Anderson would Jack Hager and Bobby Lashley, people like this, it would bring eyes to it for the freak show factor. But someone like Corey Anderson would absolutely decimate them. It would be very one-sided. And then I wonder, and I look at that Bellator heavyweight division, and outside of maybe 1, 2, 3, it's not the same level as competition as the heavyweight division in the UFC. And we've been critical of the heavyweight division in the UFC being not their strongest division. Is there anyone particularly, Dan, who outside of champion who you?
Not really. I mean, like I say, you can throw him another bone just to bite on, just to make sure he's definitely got his foot in that door and feeling comfortable with the whole Bellator sort of setup and that, because it's definitely a lot different from UFC. And then he's got to be fighting for a title, really. There's nothing else for him in that division right now. Bellator's a funny old one at the minute, especially in those heavier weight divisions. Some of the lighter weight divisions, they got some talent going on there from sort of middleweight down. But
this tells you everything you need to know about that division. Ranked number 5 is Quinton Jackson.
Yeah.
What about Linton? Linton could fight him.
Yeah, he could. Yeah, because he's heavyweight, isn't he? Yeah, he's heavyweight. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Is Matt Mitrone the champion, the heavyweight champion of Bellator now? He is, isn't he? I think so.
Yeah, he lost though recently, though, didn't he? He lost his last fight. Got knocked out. Yeah, Michelle, he got knocked.
Ryan Bader is because, of course, he is because he's.
No, Ryan Bader got beat though, didn't he? He lost to Rekic.
Yeah, I thought Bader was. Look,
no, Bader got beat.
Had the two, didn't he? He had the light heavyweight and the heavyweight at one point. Wait, let me just check. Bellator's website.
Yeah, you're right. No, he got beat by Vadim Nemkov.
Oh, Nemkov, that's it. Not Rekic. What am I talking about? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, no, he fights like Rekic. That's it. He's very, very similar style. Really good striker. Yeah, Bader got made to look a bit silly in that fight.
Bellator's website is really difficult to navigate. Like, you can't find out the rankings, you can't find out who's champion. And I think, like with UFC, you can go in, you can see the rankings, the champions. It's very easy. And I think that's something they do need to work on. You know, they're the second biggest MMA company in the world, and I can't find out who their current heavyweight champion is. That should be like one. Yeah,
I've not been very impressed with Scott Coker's arranging with the whole Bellator affair. I don't think.
Do you feel like moved up? It's like almost become like a freak, not a freak show, because that gives disservice to the fighters, but it's very much
do like circus fights.
Tired, circus.
Yeah. I mean, it's still like a real promotion and that, but yeah, you're right. They do put on some of these, we're calling it circus fights, which actually could sometimes drum up some kind of interest from time to time.
But what's his face?
It just seems to be a pre-retirement show. It's where fighters go when they're getting long in the tooth. And you might get to see that, every now and then you're treated to that matchup that never happened when they was in their prime, but it can happen now when they're out their prime. That's sort of like the best it's become. And I think it's a bit of a shame. I think Bellator was better than that back sort of like 7-8 years ago.
They got to turn into superstars.
Yeah, I just feel like, I'm blaming Scott Coker. I mean, he's the sort of like the president of the...
Yeah, he's the guy.
But it doesn't seem like he's putting much effort into, keeping it relevant.
And maybe bringing in guys like Brett Johns and Khabib's brother, who are obviously younger talents, top talents. Maybe that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, that's some younger, fresher meat. But
I'm certainly more interested in seeing those two fight than Quinton Jackson, I gotta be honest. So according to Wikipedia, which obviously can be wrong, but I think it's up to date, heavyweight champion is Ryan Bader since January 2019. He lost the light heavyweight title to Nemkov in August of this year. Then you've got Gerhard Mousasi is the middleweight title because he won it the other week. Welterweight is Douglas Lima from October 2019. Lightweight and featherweight champion is Patricio Freire. He's had the featherweight title since 2017, and he's only defended it three times. And he's had the lightweight title since May 2019, hasn't defended it. The bantamweight champion's Juan Achila. He's had that since recently. And then you've got the women's featherweight division is Chris Cyborg, and the flyweight is Elimia Leigh McFarlane. And she's defended it 4 times since 2017, in fairness to her. But yeah, I'm hoping that some of the more recent signings for Bellator is a step in the direction that they want to go in competing with the UFC for these young or peak fighters, rather than the guys who've retired 3 times and they're just in it for a payday and, like one last fight, if that makes sense. But we'll see, I guess. So moving on, let's get to the UFC card from last night. We're going to focus mainly on the main card, but there was one fight which I'd like to discuss with you, and that was Max Griffin v. Ramiz Brahimaj. Mainly the finish. I thought the fight, it was a pretty good fight, actually. Max Griffin, I thought, won all 3 rounds quite comfortably, but Ramirez was certainly game for it until, 2 minutes into the third round. They were in a clinch against the cage. Max Griffin caught him with an elbow to his left ear. There was a lot of blood, and the referee stopped it. And Max Griffin didn't really understand why at first. He took a step back where the ref broke it. And then you saw Ramirez's ear was hanging off by like a thread. And even Max Griffin gave out like a bit of a squeal. He was like, oh! He was shocked by it. But first and foremost, Richard, what did you make of the injury? And I'll ask you some further questions about gruesome injuries in a minute. But what did you make initially of that injury?
Just cosmetic damage. You don't need an ear. I don't know. No, it was grotesque. But like you could tell he knew something was up with it because he keeps touching his ear when I was in the clinch, and he must have felt it like flapping in that, because like you get caught in that in MMA. You kind of deal with these things, but he knew what was going on, and I think when he stopped it, he knew something was wrong with the ear. But I think it was kind of like, so they threw the elbow and it sort of dragged down the ear, and it literally tore it off the head. And I think the reason why it tore so easy is because he had a bad cauliflower ear, and when it all sets and goes hard, the ear isn't malleable, so it's not flexible at all, and then it just gets pulled off. But it's the first time I'd seen but something similar is when I think it's James Thompson got his ear exploded in a fight, but that was a fresh cauliflower. When it's fresh, the blood's still in the ear and it's soft and warm and squishy, but when it sets, the ear goes rock hard, so it's not flexible.
That was with Kimber Slice, I think it was, wasn't it? I think James Thompson was and also I think Sakuraba was the first person to have his cauliflower ear.
Kimbo Slice one, like Richard just said, he popped though, didn't he? It didn't rip off. It just
for it to
exploded.
Pop, it's fresh cauliflower, so the ear's got to be fresh, because we get cauliflower from training, and it's just blood gets. I just
personally think you can fight on with them, because it's not like they bleed profusely. Okay, it doesn't look that normal. Do you think you fought
on with that one though last night? Do you? I do. Off like that?
Yeah.
Every time he's in the clinch, you risk him putting it off completely.
And even if it was to tear off, I just don't think it's much. I mean, the cauliflower is nothing but a hindrance to you. It's not going to affect his hearing.
Like a fighter, that isn't it?
I just come on. A cauliflower is an ugly thing. You're probably best off without them anyway when they get that bad.
Thing is, I think from the rest point of view, it depends. Because it's a similar type of injury to when what's his face, Overeem, when his lip tore across his face.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, how bad as they continue to fight, how bad will the cosmetic damage get? Because the ear's flapping off. Is it going to pull off like more skin as it gets dragged down if he's got his head caught in a?
No, so it wouldn't do that.
So
it would just come off. Yeah.
So yesterday,
that'd be right then, because they just get in the way, don't they?
Yeah.
So after that,
it's not it's not the start of a zip that's going to undo down the body or anything.
It's like Saturday morning.
Peeled the whole face off. Like,
don't know.
It's good too. Like Saturday morning, like pure coincidence. I was flicking through Facebook while I was drinking my coffee, and I came up with this video, and I showed Mick Foley from back in 1990. So this is a guy who used to do like a really hardcore style of like WWF and all this sort of stuff. And they used to use barbed wire and, all this stuff, which they used to do in the 90s. And he was doing this, and he actually ripped his whole ear off. You see his ear just fall on the floor. And because the barbed wire got caught in his hair, and just ripped it all off. So I had seen that where the ear had literally popped off his head and he hasn't got an ear now. And then obviously saw this morning whereby it was like the UFC wouldn't even show the replay after the first one because it was literally sort of from there down to about there, just like flapping off. And I just thought, you can't continue then. Like, obviously I'm not a fighter, I'm not a coach. I've never been a fighter or a coach. So I'm looking at it from a different point of view that maybe you guys are, but like I just felt like if they'd carried on,
so you're risking from the UFC's perspective
future damage.
So I'll keep talking over you, but I feel like they don't want to show because it's still a sport at the end of the day. If it appears, because I think like UFC are gaining so many new fans at the moment, like so many. like because there's not a lot of sports going on, like as a result of COVID, and UFC have kept flourishing throughout the whole thing. Conor McGregor, like my nan knows what UFC is now because of McGregor, and I think when it was referred to as like human cockfighting and stuff like that, and now it's a very legitimate sport. I think they try to, when it gets so grotesque like that, they don't want to use that as a way of publicizing fights, if you know what I mean. It's because casual fans will be put off from it, but those, it is what it is. But I think that's why they didn't even show the repeats that much. But it's worth showing because it's as real as it gets. But I think they're just trying to. They're thinking about their new fans. I think when they're got injuries like that.
Yeah, I've actually been in the presence of a ear injury to give you a little run back of how things used to be back in the day. But we needed a cage to training and stuff like that. And many of the gyms back in the early days, crossing just over around 2001 to 2005, not all gyms had a cage. And one of my friends was able to get access to one. It was actually that remember Jason Kubiak? Did you ever train with him, Rich? Jesse Kubiak, quite a good boxer. He ended up retiring. I think he was like 6-0 in the end. One of my students, and one of his friends was friendly with a guy who owned a farm, and we set up a cage in a barn, no heating, raw as hell. We used to go in there sparring, freezing cold in winter, and Cliff Hall was sparring. He's actually this other guy's a really good jiu-jitsu guy, although at the time was still learning his craft. His name was Steve McIntosh. Really, really very, very strong black belt today, but never went down the MMA route because of what happened to him. But they were sparring in there. And back in that day, not everyone had access to normal MMA gloves either, and they was doing it in bag mitts. So Cliff Hall had the bag mitts on, and as he threw a shot and Steve tried to shoot in, the thumb caught him in the ear and ripped it completely down the centre back. So it was hanging on by just the top bit and the lobe. And so when we pulled his ear out, you could see right the way through it. It was hanging on by the top and the bottom. And that was not a cauliflower. That was just a complete normal ear being completely ripped away from his head and just literally hanging on. So when he had it stitched up, it looked really, really neat. And once it healed up, you would never have known that he had such an ear injury. But unfortunately for Steve, because like I say, he's a very, very good jiu-jitsu guy. He could have definitely have made it as an MMA fighter, but that experience put him off. That was quite something.
Is that the most brutal injury you have either witnessed or been a part of? That
in person, probably, because I was there and I had to help him out and see what, because he went down holding his ear and we see the blood coming down his face. We're like, oh, what the hell was that? We thought it was cut above the eye or something, but when we
Rich, have you seen sorry, Dan, have you seen or heard any or witnessed any gruesome injuries?
I mean the obvious one, I hate to keep bringing it up, but I think it's Tom's arm, because like I said, an ear is cosmetic damage, but to lose the function of a limb is a lot worse, you know what I mean? But and leg breaks happen often in that, but like when bones break, they heal quite nicely. All you got to do is stick them back together and the body does its. It's when you've got ligaments and tendons that are severed as well as fractures along with that. It's I think that's horrific. So I've seen that injury before. Like I think it was one of the UFC heavyweights had a similar thing. Shogun Hua had a similar injury. But I'll say Tom's
there's that Brazilian guy, didn't it?
Anderson Silva broke his leg, didn't he?
That was pretty
that's
gross.
a common one in MMA, the leg breaks.
Shin to shin, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, and
when
Tom
lower
Mearns
shin meets the top shin.
Do you remember when Tom was training at a mortal gym and the guy did a scissor takedown, snapped his ankle?
Yeah, that's horrific.
Dislocated, done his knee and snapped his ankle clean with a scissor sweep.
It was a spiral fracture, meaning that the bone didn't go in half, the bone split going up the leg.
Upwards.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why it's got such a long plate that goes in.
How Tom Mearns is walking.
Jesus.
But that
unbelievable.
Weirdly enough, that injury, which is more of a simple injury, bothers Tom more than the arm these days. That was years back, and he was a younger age when that happened. So,
Right. So we're going to move on to the main UFC card, but just before we do, I'd like to give a special shout out to Away Day Apparel. They sponsor the Danny Batten Fight Show as usual. Support the channel massively. Danny there modeling a blue and red t-shirt. They've got a lot of really nice t-shirts and designs, polo shirts in particular, looking real good. And I know they've got some massive plans for 2021. Unfortunately, with the COVID and everything, it knocked things back a little bit from some of their planned releases. But the t-shirts and polo shirts and the hats and stuff they've got at the moment is superb. And if you use the code AA Podcast Nation, you can get 10% off all orders. And it's AA Podcast Nation, all lowercase, 10% off all orders. And if you just visit awaydayapparel.co.uk. And we thank them for sponsoring the show. But
good quality clothing, by the way. Actually,
it's
got a comfortable
polo shirt for my father-in-law and for Christmas, and it's beautiful, real good quality, decent prices as well. I've got to say, not extortionate. And they got some really nice custom t-shirts as well, based on like music albums and things like that. Really, good quality stuff, nice stuff. And the guy who owns it is a top bloke, Big Al. Okay, so first fight on the main card was Claudia Gadelha versus Xiaonan. I think that's how you say her name. Richard will correct me now because he's much better at pronouncing names.
I think it's Xiaonan.
Xiaonan.
I'm thinking X is a Zhe in China.
Yeah, we'll just say Zhen then. That'll do.
Yeah, Xiaonan, Claudia Gadelha. With Claude, Yan took the victory via unanimous decision, 29-28, 29-28, 29-28. Me and Danny both called this correctly. Aaron last week with his predictions was massively wrong. Of course, me and professional predictors. Danny, what did you make of this fight, mate? Well, I know you love women's fighters.
I do, yeah. Claudia actually really impressed me. She's clearly improved her striking. She's got a nice solid form, was countering really nice and stringing her attacks to get the double unders. And it was all looking very, very good. I was really surprised how she done in that first round. She definitely won that first round. Looked really, really strong with that double under pummels and getting the takedown. But in the second round, she started to look like that may have gassed her out. She must have put in so much effort to try to keep a hold of Yan and the fear of being back out at range. So although she's really improved her striking, maybe still there's some anxieties there. So, maybe that took something out of her cardio, but can't take nothing away from Yan. Once she started keeping Claudia out of range and not allowing her to have those double unders, and by the time she did get those double unders, she was so tired she couldn't keep hold of it and be productive with a takedown attempt. Yan started to take over with the pace, really, and the strategy change. I think the fact that she started sticking behind her jab, and then when the jab was landing, she was following up with the 1-2. The jab made it a lot harder to just come in because you're dominating center line. So it was much harder for Claudia to come in and get those double unders. She's just started looking like she was just getting outrun. Definitely got the skill set to have potentially beat Yan, because she showed that in the first round, but the gas tech of Yan and the tenacity, she just stayed in there and stayed smart as well. So she wasn't being blindly ruthless with her pace. No, she started sitting behind the jab, and she built from the jab to a jab cross. And when she was clinched up, she made it much harder for Claudia to stay clinched up. She would go with her back against the fence and then shift and move. She just didn't settle there. I didn't like Claudia's choice of crutch lift. So when she was going double unders and she was struggling with that, she went for a crutch hold with head position. Now, the problem with that is it puts your arms under duress. I think I prefer the kind of control when you go for a crutch hold to pin your head diagonally across the body high. It helps you have a much more efficient control of someone. But so I wasn't a fan of that choice of control that she had, because she lost control very, very quickly from there. But yeah, you can't take enough away from Yan. I mean, she's absolute top prospect, and I think she's got nowhere else to go but to fight for that title.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I thought Claudia Gadelha was she looked pretty good, but particularly in the first round. But Yan just kept her calm, and from the second round, start at the end of the first round, really, right through to the end of the fight, took control of the fight and looked really good. Richard, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, really good fight. Closest round was round 1. It seemed like classic sort of striker versus grappler. Yan, when landing all the strikes, she sort of made it very known to all the judges. She was like, she key up a lot, or shout, you know what I mean? So she's like, hey, look at me. And she's like, hey, every time she's hitting a jab. So she's very strategical, but I think a lot of fighters do that. Just elevates their spirit when they fight. Claudia did good, but I felt like with her grappling, she was actually stalling a little bit. I hate to be critical, but because when they was on the fence, she wasn't really doing any damage. And I think Yan was actually striking, even though Yan had her back on the fence. She was quite comfortable there, and she was striking. Yeah. And then round 2 is when Yan really starts overtaking. And I thought Claudia's footwork was just really flat, if you know what I mean. And Claudia can beat her, I'm sure, on a better day, but she kind of looked like she wasn't too bothered to be in there. I've actually not seen either of these two fight before, but I'm well aware of Claudia. Yan, first time I'd seen Yan fight, it's just not a division I follow too closely. But she was just seemed really like under aroused by the fight, just walking forwards, nice form, but I just thought her footwork was a bit slow, and maybe when she was engaging the clinch work, just stalling a little bit. So
yeah, I think she was actually. I think it was a case that she was actually lost on what to do.
Yeah,
I just think the pace was being pushed harder, and when you start to gas a little bit, although she held really good form, I think that disguised how tired she was feeling.
Yeah.
No, she didn't have the same energy and vigor in the second and third round as she did in that first round. So I think. She played poker face well, but I think she was struggling with the pace. She started to really lose out on the work rate of Yan. I think Yan got a good sense of that, and she was able to start opening up with her strikes more and more confidently. And you're right, Rich. You picked up on, she was keying on all of her shots because I think she was just getting confident, and really wanted to make that apparent, not just with the impact of the strikes landing, but the verbal as well.
Yeah.
But I was impressed with Claudia, though. Let's not take nothing away from her. Definitely adding to her skill set. She was going to continue to be relevant in that division, and with the look of the increment of improvement on her striking, I think we're going to see nothing but more good things from her. But she's it just wasn't her night that night. It could be in future nights, but right now, all eyes are on that Yan and a potential shot at the title, and that's what I'd want to see next from Yan.
Yeah, my problem with Claudia Gadelha is she is very up and down. So she came into the UFC in 2014. She beat Tina Landemark by unanimous decision. Then she lost by a split decision to Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Then she beat Jessica Aguilera. Then she lost again to Jędrzejczyk by a decision. Then she won 2. Then she lost 1. Then she won 1. Then she lost 1. Then she won 2. Then she lost 1. She never quite gets a run of fights going. And you could argue that it's because every time she gets a win, they give her a big fight. Like every time she won, they put her against Jędrzejczyk twice. Then she fought Andrade. And then she fought Ansarov. So they give her like a big fight as soon as she wins 1 or 2. But she needs to get that. Like previous to the UFC, she came into the UFC 12-0. Well, 11-0, and then she was 12-0. And then since she had that first loss versus Joanna, that's where it's very up and down. So you never quite know which Claudia Gadelha you're going to get.
But I think a lot of this in the women's divisions across the board, other than the few standouts that you've got, is literally because the whole women's fight scene is still relatively new and in evolution. And when I say evolution, even the fighters are in evolution as well. They're changing their skill sets. They're adding to their game, like we saw with Claudia. And so I think this is really, really hard for them to also make solid plans for each other, because you make plans for when they last fought and you see faults and holes, and then it changes. And I think that's a little bit of what you're seeing as well. So that doesn't surprise me in any stretch. But for me, Claudia is still absolutely relevant. I think we'll still see her get her wins, and I think you're still going to see her get her losses. I think that's the way the division is. But like I say, right now, the standout is Yan and the title holder, and they have to meet and cross paths. And one of them will be having a loss on their record, because, they don't leave nothing to be left as question when they fight. They both go at it. Man, that's one fight I'm really going to be excited for.
Indeed. Next up was Giga Chikadze versus Jamie Simmons. This one only lasted 3 minutes 51, with Giga Chikadze defeating Jamie Simmons via TKO strikes. Richard, we'll go to you first. What did you make of this one?
Really good fight. Dominant from Giga, like really dominant. So I didn't know much about him, but he's a glory kickboxer, and the fight stayed in his game. Like it was all stand up, and it was brilliant. He was just really calm, composed for the whole fight, and he was throwing that body kick a lot, and it sounded horrible. And then he just goes upstairs with the kick, and he lands just on the top of the guy's head, puts him down, and then follows up with some ground and pound. He's not out cold, but the fight's finished. It was a good stoppage from Herb Dean. I really enjoyed the fight. It's like, I like watching strikers when you get to see them strike well. And Jamie was trying to sort of grapple to slow him down, but it wasn't enough. He wasn't getting him down. He was just doing upper body clinch work. He wasn't going for any leg attacks. Like, he perhaps should have gone for some leg attacks, because Giga was doing really well off the fence. Was sort of like nip him with an uppercut on the brakes. So I think it was smother him with the upper body, and then maybe on the fence just attack the legs, because he needed to switch it up. But it wasn't a long round, so I don't think Jamie was even able to sort of find out or figure out a plan, if you know what I mean. He just got outclassed. It was a good fight.
Danny, for someone who's predominantly kickboxing based, is having that height and reach advantage, he had a big reach advantage, is that like a big benefit to someone whose skill set is that?
I was just going to say, I think what become Simmons' real issue was the fact that he was giving away considerable height and considerable reach and considerable skill set at that striking range, because he's being kept out long, and it's so dangerous to be out there. You have to sort of flurry your way in. You have to sort of engage some form of striking to come in. And he just lacked the overall wrestling credentials. Richard picked up on the fact that, he was unable to switch up to shooting on the legs and stuff. I just think he just didn't have the wrestling capabilities, the diversity in that clinch to be able to try to trick Giga down and keep him down. I think from the get-go, I could see there was a considerable level difference in their skill sets, and I knew it was a matter of time really before Simmons was going to get connected to, and he did. I was not surprised even, but I thought it might go to a second round, so that some of those entries for the takedown got a little bit more sloppy. But up against a world-class striker like that, when you get caught, and it's going to be curtains very quickly after that. But I thought it was going to happen in the second round. But yeah, they look two different levels. Giga's looking really, really quite good, looking very rangy, looking very, very relaxed in there. He's got to move up. He's got to move up those ranks.
Yeah, some nice body shots, as Richard said, and the kick, which obviously put him in the head kick.
It made one hell of a sound, didn't it?
Echoed around the arena, didn't it? Next up was Raoni Barcelos versus Khalid Taha. This one went all the way to decision, with Barcelos taking the victory by unanimous decision, 30-27 ×3. Danny, you go first on this one, mate. What was your opinion?
Yeah, wow. Barcelos was incredible. He's striking energy, and he's mixed up combinations. He really took it to Taha, but Taha also impressed me as well. This guy was getting lumped up with from proper combinations, not even single hard shots. He was getting lumped up with sometimes 3 and 4 hit combinations, but his really tight form, I think, helped keep him in there. as long as he did. And he was always absolutely relevant in the fight. Always looked like he could bring something about, because he looked like he had good energy about him at all times. It's just that Barcelos was just outperforming him in every which way of the fight. Really, he just had more energy on the feet for the striking. He had more energy regards the takedown exchanges and the grappling exchanges. It just looked like he had more energy than Taha. Absolutely impressed. Barcelos really did look quite incredible there. Really liked the energy in his strikes, the jumping knee as well. Really well-timed jumping knees to the body and to the head. Beautiful to watch. I mean, they're quite hard to pull off, but he threw them numerously throughout the fight and was making them count. So, respect to him there. But you showed all-round capabilities there. Takedown defense, takedown attacks, striking attack, striking defensively. He fought in the pocket a lot with Taha. And fair play to Taha. He made Barcelos look really good because he was able to stand there and keep exchanging. There wasn't worlds apart in level. And like I say, I feel like it made it really, really, really good. They were definitely, well matched in there together, and absolutely right to have them matched up together. But Taha come up a little bit short, and Barcelos, incredible performance. Utterly impressed with what I saw. Really was.
Yeah, I thought Barcelos, particularly his timing and his footwork, were outstanding. Just the way he was changing the angles up for when Taha did start to get a bit of where he was coming from, he would just change the angle slightly. And it was really good. His timing.
Absolutely.
And
every
time he got in that pocket with those knees as well was beautiful.
And when you talk about timing of things, where the IQ part of it comes in, just as Taha looked like he was trying to get a sense of what was happening and getting his sort of like balance together to try to come in with something counter and try to develop something himself. As soon as you see that and any sign of his posture, he was having the leg taken away from him. So, that was brilliant timing. He wasn't overthrowing that shin kick. Sometimes when you throw that shin kick and you get some kind of a success, people start overthrowing for it and you can get set up. But he just threw it at the right times. He just was making himself very, very hard to read. Like I said, with those jumping knees and those hands that he was coming in with, it just made him all too much for Taha.
Did well to last 3 rounds, mate, I thought.
He did. He did absolutely do well to stay in there.
Richard, what do you make of this one?
Yeah, I loved it. I've got this down as my personal fight of the night.
Yeah, I
thought it was brilliant. And it could only have been fight of the night. One, because the variety of strikes and techniques we've seen from Barcelos, but also because of how hard Taha is. Like the fight was on a couple of occasions close to being finished, and so he did great to stay in there. But as I was watching the fight, I'm only watching Barcelos and all these techniques are thrown. I feel like he definitely had like a strong game plan coming in there. Must have studied a lot of Taha, because he was throwing a lot of strikes up through the middle. So he started off with the front kicks. So I think he must have seen a weakness there and thought, that's what I'm going for. Kept throwing the up kicks, and he opened up with one, and he was close with that. He dropped in he threw a few flying knees and dropped in with a lead knee, and it's crazy how quickly he gets the lead knee up there. So he's got like long legs on him. I was loving the car kicks. They were so well timed that on I think 2 or 3 occasions the car kick put him to the mat completely. The ground game was amazing. They go to ground because he had an awesome body lock takedown. So he gets the body lock and just whips him up off his feet onto his back. And then Taha did good to reverse it. And then straight away, Barcelos is setting up just such a beautiful armbar. Doesn't get it, but it was just non-stop action. And Taha done amazing to stay in that fight, but he really was outclassed. And yeah, it was just fight of the night for me. It was just so exciting. So I loved it.
Barcelos his overall professional record is 16-1. He's only ever lost once in the RFA. Since he's come to the UFC, he's 5-0, and he's had 2 fight of the nights. He's also fought 2 different weights, but he's looked impressive, including beating Said Nurmagomedov in his last fight on the Korean Zombie versus Edgar card in 2019, which was in Korea. So it'll be interesting what they do with him now, because he's come in and he's really earned his stripes. He's come in, looked impressive, looked better with every fight, won 2 fight of the nights, beaten Saeed, beating everything they've put in front of him.
Khabib's brother, Saeed.
I always get confused with which one's his brother and which one is, because there's a couple called Nurmagomedov who are not related to him, but then there's also one who's his cousin. His brother signed with Bellator. I know that much, but I forget which one to which. I will tell you now, though, because I'm on his page. No, I think that's the one that's not related to Khabib. But yeah, in terms of Barcelos, it'll be interesting what they do with him next, because he's every question they've asked of him, he's answered with flying colours. So I'd like to see what he could do against a ranked fighter. Was this fight featherweight or bantamweight?
It was bantamweight.
I thought so, yeah. Because he's predominantly fought a featherweight before coming to the UFC. So just looking at the bantamweight division, like the lower ranked guys, there's a couple of guys I wouldn't mind seeing him against. You've got like Song Yadong at 14, Marlon Vera 15, Cody Stamen 13, and then you're up into the Murab, your Dominic Cruz at 10. I mean, personally, I wouldn't be against seeing him against Dominic Cruz, to be honest, but I don't think Dominic Cruz takes that fight, if I'm honest. I think he's probably got his eyes on above him rather than below, but you never know. Danny, anyone in particular you'd like to see him go up against?
Just anyone between that top 15 to top 10. I want to see him start breaking through. He's done his legwork to deserve such things. So yeah, that's all I can say. But what a stacked division it is, though. It's full of talent in that division. But he's certainly one that's adding to it.
Yeah, I'd like to see him. I would if they're not going to if they wouldn't give him Dominic Cruz, which that's the one I would really like to see. Like a Song or a Marlon Vera would be pretty good. I wouldn't give him Murab Divashrali yet. I would save that fight, because that is that potentially down the road could be your 2 new stars, but we'll see. Next up was Andrei Arlovski versus Tanner Boser. Caused a little bit of arguments on social media, as a lot of people seem to score it for Boser. Personally, I had it all 3 for Arlovski, but let's see what the experts say. Richard, what did you think of this, and how did you score the rounds?
I want to be honest, I didn't catch all of this one. I watched the main event first, and then I was sort of halfway through watching this one. So I was just watching it, but it looks good, but I can't give the honest opinion on this.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to make stuff up.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Yeah. Danny,
ask Danny.
Right, this was really hard to score, because the end of the first and the second round ended with Arlovski landing a really hard strike. They were both fairly elusive. It was clear that they're both counter fighters, and so to fill in the gap of waiting for each other to counter each other, Boser was just sort of chipping away at Arlovski's leg that did start showing a little bit of wear and tear on it, but nothing regards those leg kicks were doing any particular damage. I think there was just literally feel out kicks to try to create something that might come off them. Arlovski's, he's well experienced, and he's not going to fall into temptation of a few irritating leg kicks to draw himself out into making a mistake. He stayed true to his form. He kept really, really tight. He was waiting for the big shot to try to create a finish, although that was never there in its entirety. He did end both of those rounds where he looked like he ruffled the feathers of Boser, and I think that's where he was perhaps edging those rounds, because he made that little stamp, that little mark on the judge's mind. So I'm not surprised that the judges gave it to Arlovski. If you want to do it blow for blow, hit for hit, yes, Boser was the busier man regards those kicking of the legs, but they weren't consequential. He was the one sort of dancing around a lot, not sitting down on his shots. there was a clear size difference to me as well. I actually thought Boza was bigger than that. I've seen him Boza fight before, and he looked quite a big dude, but he didn't look very big against Arlovski. I've met Arlovski before, and Arlovski is a unit of a man. Really, really, he's about 6'3", so he's substantial in height, but really, really thick-bodied as well. He's a genetically big guy, and I just think he was fearing the power of Arlovski, so he should have. But it would have been nice to see Boza. He had a chance to try and make a statement there, and I think he lost his opportunity a little bit. I think he was too gun shy, but I think it was all for him to try to make an impression and take it to Arlovski. But like I say, Arlovski just looked solid. He took the centre a little bit more. He wasn't retracting away with his footwork, and I think that made Boza look a little bit negative. Although he was doing the right idea with his footwork, he was not doing the right idea with his work rate. And I think that's initially what gave Arlovski the win, the fact that anything that was consequential being thrown was from Arlovski.
Yeah, I think Arlovski ultimately is an experienced campaigner, and he knows the way the judges are going to score. And kind of nothing leg kicks are not going to really win you the fight, whereas one or two consequential combinations will. In each round, Arlovski had a consequential kind of combination or some strikes which could have done damage, as opposed to, like you say, Tanner Boza was quite negative, or seemed quite negative, because of the way Arlovski fought the fight. So I can see, I gave all 3 rounds to Arlovski. Really, for that, he had more consequential and substantial strikes, even though Boza probably outstruck him in terms of numbers. But Boza looks a little uncomfortable and twitchy, so that can also go against you. But yeah, what can I say? It was a close fight. No two ways about that. But but Boza just had too much respect for that power. I mean, you got to be in there and you got to mix it up. It's not like how it used to be. You can't just be playing a pure points game. This is not semi-contact. And really, most of what Boza threw was pretty much semi-contact, especially with those leg kicks. They were touching in, but that's not enough to score. You've got to stick some meat on your shots. And he either wasn't doing it through choice, or Arlovski wasn't giving him a chance to do it because of the fear of those counter hands that Arlovski's got. Arlovski's very, very heavy-handed. I would have liked to have seen Arlovski match Boza a little bit more with the leg kicks. And be a little bit more diverse, because that was definitely close. And other judges could have easily seen it the other way. If they was going to be, clicking away and scoring each individual strike, Boza was winning on that front. But the fight itself was going in Arlovski's favour, and Arlovski, for me, deserved to win, and he did. So
I'm watching it now. Went and you're right. He's checking all of them leg kicks. He's checking them. And Boza is looking like the busier guy, and he's throwing a higher volume of strikes, but he's covered. Arlovski's covered. And strikes landing on the guard doesn't count for much. And then round 2, he lands a cracking back fist.
So that scoring mechanism that they have, where they shot the statistics for leg kicks and so on and so forth, they're just doing the connected leg kicks, but not the fact that they'll be being checked or defended. If you have a look at Arlovski's knee line, it's almost perfect for MMA. He has a very forward poking knee line, which means you can receive the kick in a positive way to potentially counter. It's when people have a boxing or American kickboxing style where they have that lead foot and the knee angle, their knee line cuts in. They're the ones that are susceptible to those leg kicks where it can buckle that knee across. But Arlovski's got a very, very good, almost like a Dutch kickboxing style. And it gives you a really good solid knee line to counter leg kicks. And I think Boza felt the power of Arlovski and felt the size of Arlovski in terms of his presence, and it was making him nervy in there. And so he started trying to play this long range touching of the legs. I think had he tried to put power into any of those leg kicks, Arlovski would have lumped him up even more brutally than he did at the ends of those rounds where he was scoring. Frustrating one for Boza. It must have been frustrating for Boza, but yeah, Losky's just a cool character, man. He's been in there a long, long time, and amazing that he still looks as good as he didn't look out of breath at all at 41 years old. Utterly impressive.
Indeed, mate. Yeah. So the main event of the evening, which I thought was an absolutely cracking fight, only just the second, not quite the fight of the night, because the other one was so good. Glover just TEIXEIRA, ranked number 3, defeated Thiago Santos, who's ranked number 1, via submission, rear naked choke, 1 minute 49 of the third round. But a very, very exciting fight. Richard, what did you make of the main event?
Brilliant. I loved it. I thought Santos would win just because he just got that freakish power. And it kind of looked like my prediction was going to be right at the start of the fight. Because he just clobbers him with just like the mallet hands, drops him. And I just thought Glover's just done amazing just to, like, I don't know how hard he was dropped in round 1 or if it was just more that it was caught off balance. But I had TEIXEIRA winning that round. Like, after getting dropped, he just dominated it. So he recovered well, took him down, beat him up. Round 2 was the same. In the last 10 seconds, he was really close to finishing him with the rear naked choke. And round 3, same again. I was quite interested how he got back to his feet because he was underneath for a bit eating. TEIXEIRA was on the bottom eating ground and pound from Santos.
Yeah, some elbows coming up as well.
Well, I was amazed how he got back to his feet. I stopped it, watched it again, stopped it, watched it again. But he just somehow gets underneath, puts him to the fence, drags him back down. And then it was a rear naked choke finish, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm assuming that Santos, I was just curious how he got back to his feet so easy. And it looked like Santos didn't pinch half guard. So when Danny's teaching us how to grapple, he says, you go half guard, you got to pinch your knees together to keep that bottom leg trapped in. And it looks like when he started getting just overexcited with the ground and pound, as he postured up, his knees were not pinching the leg into the half guard. And then that's how all of a sudden TEIXEIRA just reverses the position. But yeah, it was brilliant. It was good to see him go through like such adversity and then just turn it around completely. So yeah,
on his head, age 41, and for a second I thought he was done in that first round, and then all of a sudden he just kind of got up, and as he was getting up, he was getting punched and elbowed, and he was just kind of getting powered up, and then by the end of the round, he had dominated it. And I think that at the end of that second round, if it had gone on an extra 30 seconds, Glover TEIXEIRA probably would have won because he had the rear naked choke or a choke on at the end of the second round, I think it was, as it ended. And then obviously he finished it off in the third round. But I thought utterly impressive performance by Glover TEIXEIRA. And we talked about off air before the show, like he deserves a title shot now, but likely isn't going to get one anytime soon because the light heavyweight titles, like we discussed earlier, is going to be Blachowicz and Adesanya in March, with the winner then taking on John Jones later in the year, which means the earliest TEIXEIRA gets a light heavyweight title shot really is probably December of next year. He's 41 now, Dan.
Yeah.
Do you feel for him a little bit in terms of the title?
Yeah, he's in an unfortunate circumstance, really, with what's happening in 2 weight divisions. The 2 weight divisions are mixing up, and it's gonna be putting him in the waiting queue a little bit. And you're right, at his age, he doesn't want to wait around. He wants to get active.
He deserves his title shot, mate, as well.
To be in the kind of condition he's in, he's obviously living a pretty clean life. So I don't think we're going to see a massive decrease in his physical capabilities. I still think he's absolutely going to be relevant in another year's time if he chooses to be. He's got 2 choices, really. Push to have another fight, which obviously is always a risk of then losing and then not becoming a contender and having to rebuild, which is sort of maybe going to be out of his reach at his age and not something he's going to be willing to do. Or he's going to have to be patient to see what happens. Really frustrating situation.
he's on a 5-fight win streak. In that 5-fight win streak, he's beaten Carl Robertson via triangle. Then he choked out Ion Cutelaba. Then he beat Nikita Krylov via decision. Then he absolutely destroyed Anthony Smith. If you remember, Anthony Smith's face was just...
He took his teeth out, didn't he?
Yeah. And then obviously he's choked out Thiago Santos. He's on an amazing run. He lost to Corey Anderson, and before that he beat Misha Serkinov. He's beaten Jared Cannonier, Rashad Evans. He's beaten some names, and he deserves the title shot, and I feel for him. But like you say, to be in the shape he's in, he clearly lives a very clean lifestyle. So hopefully the title shot comes to him before he gets to a point where he's on the downward curve. He doesn't seem like he's on that downward curve that fighters tend to get as they reach a certain age, where they just become slower, don't they? And they still got the skill, but their chin weakens and whatnot. He took some shots in this fight and still turned it around. How impressed were you with his performance?
Yeah, I was. I mean, come on, Santos is a powerful young dude that comes and he just throws it all out there, and he did that, and it was looking really, really dodgy for TEIXEIRA. But this is kind of like how I saw it. Really, it was a case of, was he going to overpower TEIXEIRA early on, or was TEIXEIRA gonna use his full MMA skill set and find a strategy to win? And it was the latter that come to fruit. Look, TEIXEIRA to me impresses me. He can strike really well. He can push really close with his boxing. So I like that about him. He's got takedown capabilities, and his grappling, well, is clearly second to none in this weight division. He's got his top pressure. He's got it down really, really well. With what you were saying, Richard, so the difference between the way TEIXEIRA was doing his top half guard position compared to Santos, and the reason why TEIXEIRA was able to keep the position pinning down, TEIXEIRA was using his forearm under the chin a lot as his main control. So this keeps the spine flat, and when the spine's flat, your back goes flat to the mat pretty much. Even if you was able to get a far side under pummel, you're going to be unable to set up because you need to be able to curl your spine and put your head close to the hip to be able to come up. Now, when Santos had his top half guard position, if you have a look at the way he was ground and pounding, he did the forearm across the chin to put TEIXEIRA's back flat, but then struck with that arm. And not only did he strike with that arm that was keeping his back flat, he also posted his other arm that should have been controlling the hip and keeping the under pummel. He posted it completely flat off the floor, which meant that he totally allowed TEIXEIRA to come up to his side. Now, if you give someone of that capability and that grappling experience space to sit up and get an under pummel, they will, and then use their wrestling to bowl you over and reverse a position. That's absolutely what we saw there. We just saw two different people's levels on the ground, one demonstrating the half guard in a proper, meaningful way in terms of MMA and getting the ground and pound off, keeping the position tight, compared to Santos is getting the ground and pound off in a way where the position was loose. I really enjoyed it. I really do like TEIXEIRA. I want to see things happen for him while he's young enough to do so. I just hope he don't wait too long. But it does look like, with what's going on in two weight divisions right now, that he's kind of going to be left out in the cold a little bit. But let's just see what happens.
I would like to see him fight Rakic, I think, would be the one I'd probably put him in. It's a risk, isn't it? But you know what? And Thiago Santos, right? Guys, no mug. Some of the names he's beaten, unbelievable. He's beaten Marshman, Meerschaert, Hermansson, Anthony Smith, Kevin Holland, Eric Anders, Jimmy Manua. He beat the current champion Jan Blachowicz, and then he's lost to John Jones and Glover TEIXEIRA most recently. He also lost to David Branch back in 2018, but he has beaten some big names. Elias Theodorou, he's beaten some big names along the way. So for Glover TEIXEIRA to get floored early on and then turn the fight around completely, I think he deserves tremendous credit for that. To be able to have the fight IQ, the composure to not panic, to get up, eat the strikes while he's getting up, and then completely dominate the fight. and then choke out a guy like Santos. Unbelievable. And I really, really enjoyed the fight overall. I thought it was amazing. But yeah, I think Rakic would probably be the one that I put him against. Just have a look at that light heavyweight division. Like, he can't go a whole year really without fighting, can he? So he's going to have to fight someone. You got Rakic, rank 4. I don't want to see him fight Dominic Reyes. Maybe an Ozdemir or a Frashaka. Those would probably be the 3 I'd be looking at. I don't want to see him face Reyes.
Really, I would say I'd rather see him fight Reyes.
I just think he'd take Reyes apart.
Yeah, I think so too. But purely just because it'll keep his tool set sharp. Yeah, and keep him in contention. I would expect him to win.
A rematch versus
a guy of that age.
Smith.
Yeah, no, that's not going to be good for Smith. Smith, I don't think would take it, or you shouldn't take it. Smith needs to. For one, I think Smith needs to go down to middleweight. I just think he needs to create some attention in another division and restart himself. But for TEIXEIRA, I think Rakic is too risky, just too risky. He should be fighting a guy like that for the title, not to just keep himself
ticking over,
being sharp. Yeah, that's one that he really could lose. I just want to see this.
Just underneath
that's another possible matchup. But I just want to see this guy. I just want to see this guy get what he deserves, and that's that top shot at the title. He's done that legwork. He's fighting everyone. Come on, this Santos is a dangerous opponent, and you just listed off some of the guys that he's ran through, and he's looked damn impressive. And okay, he had a sticky moment in the early part of that first round, but other than that, he's pretty damn dominant. And it just goes to show you what kind of caliber, he really, really is. And I just want to see what he deserves, and that's to get that title shot. And to have a fight in between, I'd want him to have one that's
more likely he's going to win.
Yeah, and I don't only mean a give me fight because he's at a level where if he fights any of those guys on any given day, he could lose. But I think Reyes, he could absolutely beat TEIXEIRA if he's got his form set down. But stylistically, TEIXEIRA could also really have Reyes's number. I just think that fight is attractive for me, and I feel like that would be fair to his position of waiting.
Yeah, I think so. Anyone in those rankings?
I do,
yeah.
I was just saying, like, it seems to sort of really, it keeps it. When a lot of these fighters go for champ status, it seems to put a whole division on hold for a bit. Like, I remember, like, Conor had featherweight division on standby, and it don't seem to be right. And like, just because you're champion of one division, does it mean you should, when you go up a category, get the first title shot, or because you maybe should earn your spot to fight for the belt in the next division up? You can't just go straight.
I think the only
belt.
reason that Adesanya is going straight for the belt is because they're trying to make that John Jones fight even bigger, aren't they? So he can say that he's been the light heavyweight champ. But I think that's the only reason he's doing it myself. I don't think he's particularly interested in it.
Fighters are fighters, and they have to fight to make their money. That's their job to do so. And UFC, regards being a company, is all about earning as much money as they can by creating
the biggest fights,
big fights, and that is the nature of the sport. And you either go with it or you don't go with it. You either going to be in it and deal with these difficult situations. And the situation is what it is. They do come about from time to time, and for some people late in their career, like TEIXEIRA, they come at a sort of a potentially bad time. But like I say, there are options for him. I hope UFC respect his position and give him someone that's not going to jeopardize.
What about this then, Dan? What about TEIXEIRA versus Rakic for the interim light heavyweight title, and then the winner gets the champ?
Yeah, that's more attractive, and that might sell it to TEIXEIRA more. I think that gives it a little bit more tasteability. And it's a little bit more
basically a title shot, isn't it?
And I take it that their payday will be better because, like I say, ultimately these guys are doing a job, and at his age, he wants to be trying to not only get hold of that title, but he wants that title for monetary gains so that he can look to have a nice retirement on his hands, and this guy deserves it. Like I say, I'm a big fan of him. He always conducts himself really, really well, and he really showed his character when he was beating on Smith. You know, he was literally apologising for having to hit him. I mean, that just goes to show a little bit of character. But luckily, you know, he knew it was a job to do, and he carried on doing his job, even though that he felt bad for the guy that he was giving the beat down on.
Yeah. So a couple of little things I wanted to ask you about. Some Cage Warriors fights were announced. Luke Shanks defends his title versus Jake Hadley. What a fight that is, on December the 10th, I think it is. What do you make of that one, Dan? That's a big fight. Yeah,
this is one I wouldn't want to, you know, be putting my money down on any one of them winning. Luke Shanks is either gonna, you know, out cardio all the way. When I say out cardio, I don't think he's going to get heavily tired, but you know, just his work rate will win through over 5 rounds, or potentially, you know, Hadley's just going to be too strong and shut Luke Shanks down, so he can't get that work rate off. And I think that's what it's going to boil down to. Hadley's got the power, and he's got pretty good wrestling credentials, and he could sort of stamp out the flame that Luke Shanks brings. But if he doesn't get control of someone like Luke, he's going to keep punching, he's going to keep kicking, he's going to keep shooting, he's going to harass you and just outpoint you. And yeah, what a matchup.
Both guys were seriously impressive on the last trilogy card, just gone.
Yeah.
So it's really exciting to see them against each other. Another one which was announced, Richard, was Sam Creasy versus Adam Armasinga, which I think is another cracking fight at flyweight. Does that one? What do you make of that one? Do you think that's going to be a good fight?
Yeah, that'd be a really good fight. I think Creasy's going to try to close his distance. He seems to circle a lot of his footwork, and he seems to fight on the outside. Maybe look to grapple and get Armasinga down, because I don't think he should strike with him, personally.
No, Armasinga's been very impressive last couple of fights. And Sam admittedly himself said to us, Dan, didn't he, that he felt a bit rusty at the last Cage Warriors. Armasinga is not someone which you can afford to be kind of off your game with.
No. Yeah. Sam can beat anyone when he gets everything in tune and everything works well. But Armasinga is one of those ones, if you've got a micro fracture in your game on that night, he's going to find a way to expose that. If Sam's on song, he could be ahead in every area. But like I say, if he just misses a beat anywhere, that's a round that he's going to keep dropping to Armasinga. So, yeah, a real good matchup. I mean, it's another one I wouldn't want to put my money on who's going to become victorious in that. I want Sam to win, obviously, because I've got history with him, and he comes down to our gym and trains, and you know, I've got friendship with him, and so for that reason, you know, I'll be cheering for him. But Armasinga has absolutely impressed me the last number of outings. He's clearly working really hard to improve his skill set, and he fights with IQ. You know, that impresses me.
So I'm going to ask you at the moment. It is, you're right there, Richard. Just to finish this off, I'm going to ask you for a couple of predictions for UFC next week. Not going to go through all the fights, but we'll go through a couple. So Reece McKee is fighting versus Alex Morono on the prelims. Danny, do you think Reece gets the win there?
Oh, sorry, say that again.
Reece McKee versus Alex Morono.
Yeah. I think, Reece McKee, I think he's going to have this one.
It's a better fight for him than his debut fight.
Oh, my God. Absolutely. And I feel like this is, you know, I'm glad UFC have done this. It's still not a walk in the park. I mean, no, but you know, it's not a walk in the park. But
stitched him up, didn't they, with the late fight versus Chimaev? They
did. But I think it was all about, look, hey, come on, take this fight, fill in this spot, and you've got yourself a UFC contract. Yeah, many, I think practically anyone that hasn't been in UFC before, they all want to head there, and they would bite on that opportunity, and he did. What happened. He has to just put that in the past. it wasn't a good representation of his skill set and his capabilities. Everyone knows that. We all saw through the situation that he was put into, and hopefully now he's got his foot in the door. He can start showing what he's really capable of, and I think he will do that.
Indeed. Richard, do you think Rhys McKee's going to take that one?
I can't give the most educated guess because I've actually not seen Moreno fight, but I want McKee to win because he's from the same circuits me and my brother fighting on, and to see him go on and dominate in the UFC would be great because then it knows that we're all on the right path here. He could do it by knockout because Rhys has got great boxing, and I see on Moreno's last fight he was knocked out in round 1. So let's say Rhys McKee KO.
Shocked. This is an interesting card, this one, because on the prelims, there's some really good young names on there. In the female division, you've got Corey McKenna fighting, you've got Kay Hansen, Ashley Yoder, Miranda Granger, you've got Rhys McKee, you've got Louis Smoker, Geraldo De Freitas Jr., Tony Gravely, some kind of some potential big names there. So I'd be interested in those prelims, Dan, next week. We'll have a good look at those, I think.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we can look at them.
And then on the main card, I'm not going to go through all of them, but you got Eric Anders fighting Antonio Arroyo. Any preference for that one, Dan?
Not really.
I'm going to go with Eric Anders for that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go opposite just to make it a mix, but that's so hard to pick.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The main event is Islam Makhachev. Oh, sorry, Rich. Who are you going to go for with Eric Anders and Antonio Arroyo?
Eric Anders. I don't know why. Eric Anders.
Main event is Islam Makhachev versus Rafael Dos Anjos. Danny, I'll let you pick first this time.
I'm going to go Ismail. Dos Anjos, to me, he's been making errors he gets put up against the fence and gets taken down there. He goes linearly backwards and he doesn't seem to be correcting it. And I think if any smart fighter's been watching that, they'll know the recipe to beat him. So I'm going to go against him on that one. I'm going to go Ismail.
I think Islam Makhachev will win. Yeah, but obviously I'll go with Rafael just to keep it interesting. And Richard, who you got there? Islam Makhachev or Rafael Dos Anjos?
I'm saying Islam because he's got the momentum on his side. Dos Anjos can do it, but it's just it doesn't look like it's been his time for the last couple of years.
Yeah, I agree. There's a couple of guys
got one loss on his record, and Dos Anjos is kind of coming off a string of losses. He got his last win against Kevin Lee last year, but had 2 losses since then.
So. There's a couple of guys to keep an eye on next week, Dan. Abdul Razak Al Hazan. I've heard he's quite tasty. He's fighting Chaos Williams, so that should be a good fight to watch. Or Eric Anders, and then you've got Julian Marquez versus Sapirberg Safarov. So I can ask you to predict that one because I'm sure you're familiar with both of them. So it's Julian Marquez versus Sapirberg Safarov.
Yeah, I'm going to go Safarov. Let's go for that one.
Yeah, I actually think I'm going to go with Marquez for that one.
Really?
And, yeah, I don't think that at all. I think Safarov's going to win, but just for the sake of the either or. Richard, lastly for you, Julian Marquez or Safarov?
It's just a guess. Safarov, because Danny called it. He's a genius, apparently.
The BST guru.
Even though I beat him at chess, by the way.
Explain the circumstance. I take my queen off the board.
It doesn't matter. I beat him.
And he nearly lost. He nearly lost that game.
No, he didn't nearly lost. I beat him decisively and backed him into a corner. Checkmate.
I am really looking forward to that Chaos Williams versus Al Hassan fight though next week. I think that's going to be a very
That's a cool name. That's his actual name, right? Chaos.
Yeah, Chaos with a K.
So he doesn't even need a fight name, does he? Like,
no,
Chaos,
that's beautiful.
That's cool.
But I do think that's going to be probably the fight to look out for.
Right.
But yeah, interesting. Guys, you can follow the show at Danny Batten FS on Twitter and Instagram. Subscribe, youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation. Check out Away Day Apparel at awaydayapparel.co.uk. And you can use the code AA Podcast Nation to get 10% off all orders. So as you come up to Christmas, get some stuff from them because they've got some real nice stuff. Richard, where can people follow you on the socials?
R_Mearns. You can see some nice pictures of me in my Veil Tudo shorts.
Hey, do you know what? Because this is coming up for Christmas, Richard. I'm actually going to get you a present, and I'm actually going to tell you what it is, so that the audience know. Don't worry, I'm going to buy you some Regain for that patchy beard of yours, that patchy stubble.
Go on then. If it works, I love it. But to be honest, I'm hoping it spreads everywhere. It's just a chore. Yeah. I hope it spreads around your face and down to the nutsack. Make my life so much easier.
There you go. Richard, thank you, mate. It's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
I'm sure you'll be back soon. And Danny, as always, it's an honour.
Danny, I'm going to buy you a Christmas present. I'm going to buy you a pair of glasses. Yeah.
No, there's nothing wrong with these ones. They're £1.50 from what is it called?
In the garage.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't spend a lot on
that gap there.
Didn't have to get you a gold tooth done.
My parents always keep going on about you got to get your tooth done, but I keep threatening to get an LED in there, one that flashes all different colours. And
that'd be wicked. That'd be wicked.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys. See you next week.
Yeah.
See ya.